the truth delivered. Common sense for the American people.
President Trump. As for the president, he remains committed to always pursuing diplomacy first. But in order for diplomacy to work, of course, it takes two to tango. You need a willing partner to engage. And so that's something the president and Special Envoy Witkoff are exploring and discussing right now. Special Envoy Witkoff is set to have conversations with the Iranians later this week. Those are still scheduled as of right now. But of course, the president has always a range of options on the table, and that includes the use of military force. The Iranians know that better than anyone. Just look no further than the highly successful Operation Midnight Hammer, which took not just Iran, but the entire world by surprise and completely obliterated their nuclear capabilities earlier last year.
With me to discuss all of this is Benham Ben Taleblu, the Iran Program Senior Director and Senior Fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Benham, welcome into the Scott Jennings Show. I'd like to get your reaction to all of this, the possible talks, the shooting down of the drone, what you heard Caroline Leavitt say. Where do we stand with Iran right now, in your opinion?
Well, it's a pleasure to be with you, Scott. Listen, we're either on the precipice of a bad deal or a military conflict. But to what end is the million-dollar question? And I think President Trump has everybody right where he wants them, with both allies and adversaries alike trying to guess and figure out and hedge as it comes to his next move. In 2025, for example, we saw President Trump literally go through every option on the table as it comes to Iran. The reason now we're talking about the Islamic Republic in 2026, however, is that there was massive nationwide protests, and the Islamic Republic brutally repressed those protests, and the president not talking about nuclear, not talking about missile, not talking about terrorism, not talking about maritime, drew not one but multiple red lines in the sand there, and said that if the regime continued to crack down, that he would hold those who cracked down responsible, that the U.S. was locked and loaded, and that more recently help was on its way. Now, in my view, there is no nuclear deal off-ramp that the U.S. Special Envoy or the president's son-in-law at this point in time can negotiate with a regime like the Islamic Republic. Lest we forget, this is a regime that has a bounty on the president's head, has a fatwa against him, against his property, and even against the female members of his family. Always important to remember that here. And then moving forward, of course, we can't forget that, Donald Trump really broke the taboo, slaughtered the sacred cow that used to govern Washington, D.C. for decades, that said you can't even provide political or moral support for protesters. He showed that that was absolutely possible in term one. Now in term two, when the regime is trying to call his bluff to see if he would do more than provide moral or political support for protesters, you have the Abraham Lincoln in the region, and the Iranians right now are trying to buzz, or have tried to buzz that, with a Shahed 139 drone. It's a modified drone. It's an unmanned combat aerial vehicle. It can do surveillance and reconnaissance, but more importantly, it can carry guided munitions. And I think it was precisely prudent for the USS Abraham Lincoln to launch that F-35 and take out that drone so that there's a strong signal of resolve. So whatever direction the president goes in, that he can take the best hand with him.
In your opinion, how close is the Iranian regime to falling? And can it fall without a push from the United States? Or do you believe that only military intervention will ultimately lead to regime change in Tehran?
This is a regime that is weak, but it is still very lethal. And that's what we have to remember. This is a regime that is willing, and unfortunately just proved that is shooting its way out of the crisis under the cover of an internet blackout. 36 to 43,000 Iranians have been killed in a record matter of days, shattering both records for killings and executions inside the Islamic Republic in contemporary Iranian history, and even comparable to some grotesque 20th century massacres in recorded history. In that case, an unarmed, pro-American, pro-Western population in the heartland of the Muslim Middle East needs support. It is highly unlikely that this unarmed population is going to be able to overcome and overwhelm the regime and its layered security forces. And here I believe, as Henry Kissinger used to say many years ago, and as is ascribed to him, that foreign policy is not missionary work. There's a huge difference between foreign imposed regime change, which is something that Uncle Sam unfortunately has done in this region and hasn't had great successes with, versus foreign supported regime change. If we could flip the script on the Ayatollahs, I think that would be a huge strategic and political win for the president, not just a moral one.
We have about a minute to go. I'm just going to ask you point blank. The president has broad peace plans for the Middle East, and he has done more than virtually any other president in my lifetime to get there. But in order to achieve his full vision, does he need Iran to fall? Does he need to get rid of the Ayatollah? Or can he still achieve peace if somehow this regime survives?
I think at best the president would be holding his vision for peace together, and more importantly, prosperity together with spit and gum and glue, and it would not have a political legacy beyond his administration. There is no way out but through here. Uncle Sam needs to help flip the script to empower the street in Iran, which is pro-American and pro-Israeli, against the state, which is the most anti-American and the most anti-Israeli in that part of the world. The path to peace, the path to prosperity, the path to stability only can happen when you take out Tehran's theocrats, those American partners in the region who are currently hedging, which believe that stasis equals stability, needs to only look to the past 47 years to realize that by locking in the Islamic Republic, they had only guaranteed further instability.
That voice you're hearing, Behnam Ben Taleblu, the Iran Program Senior Director and Senior Fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Find him on the X platform at The Real Behnam, BT. Behnam, thanks for joining us. We'll check back in with you. The facts are protesters are being slaughtered. The Iranian regime continues to chant death to America. They are sending drones to buzz the USS Abraham Lincoln, and we're planning to talk. I'm not holding my breath that they'll have anything useful to say, but we'll check with you as developments warrant. This is the Scott Jennings Show here on Salem. Common sense for the American people. I have some common sense for you from a man named Keith in Washington. As you know, we've been canvassing the customers, satisfied customers of Relief Factor, and Common Sense Keith tells us this, that he was an extremely active guy, former college athlete, martial arts instructor, teaching multiple classes a day. But over time, his body was wearing down, and he tried Relief Factor, and all of a sudden, his knee pain nearly disappeared. His neck pain dropped significantly. He was able to keep training, and he even earned his black belt. Again, letter after letter, after anecdote, after story comes in, and they all say the same thing. I had pain. I tried Relief Factor, and it worked for me. That's my recommendation to you. Try their 3-week quick start plan. Call 1-800-4RELIEF or visit relieffactor.com. Let's see if we can work together to get you out of pain. Stay with us. This is Scott Jennings on Salem. More after this.
News, comment, and the stories and facts the mainstream media refuses to discuss. It's the Scott Jennings Show.
It is Tuesday, February 3rd. Scott Jennings broadcasting live from Boston, Massachusetts today. After the show, driving out to Dartmouth, having a big debate against Anna Navarro on campus tonight, debating the future of the Republican Party out there. We look forward to that drive. Jared, we're going to drive through the countryside. We'll see the sights, see the snow. I do want to talk to you, by the way, about some politics this segment. A Senate race is going on in Texas. Someone is challenging the smartest person in national Democratic politics. You know who that is, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. She's their highest IQ Democrat. But the same political ecosystem that gave us Beto O'Rourke and then Pete Buttigieg has now rolled out version 3.0 of this kind of candidate. His name is James Telerico. Now, Telerico is different, but not in a good way. He is not your garden variety radical progressive. He actually tries to put a religious spin on his radical liberal progressive politics. He is not just coming to take your guns, to trans your kids, and to reorder American society from top to bottom. He is going to do it while telling you that God is totally cool with it. That's the pitch anyway. And I'm sorry, but that's not bold, it's not brave, and it's not compassionate. In fact, I think it's deeply sick stuff. Don't take my word for it, though. Let's hear it straight from his mouth. Let's play Telerico Cut 4.
The first two lines of the Bible, the first two lines in Genesis, use two different Hebrew words to describe God. One is the masculine Hebrew noun for divinity. The second is the feminine Hebrew noun for spirit. God is both masculine and feminine and everything in between. God is non-binary.
God is non-binary, Telerico says. I don't think you need to be a master theologian or have gone to seminary or even cracked open a Bible lately to understand how off base this man is. But here's the thing. He, nor does the progressive left, actually care, because they'll clap for this. They'll nod along. They'll celebrate this use of religion to justify mutilation of children. They use religion as a tool to advance their ideology. Faith isn't sacred to them. It is instrumental, and it doesn't stop with twisting theology to justify radical social policy. It also shows up in the way Telerico talks about other Christians who simply don't share his politics. Remember, he serves in the Texas State House alongside people who are, in fact, openly Christian. Listen to how he talks about them. Here's cut 3.
And that applies to Muslims and Hindus.
Listen, I have.
This is, they can learn a lot. I have Jesus.
I have met so many Hindus, Buddhists, Sikh, Jews, Muslims, atheists, agnostics, who are more Christ-like than some of the Christians I serve with in the Texas legislature.
Now, look, no offense to anyone who isn't a practicing Christian. You are free Americans. You're entitled to your beliefs. But I got to say, to be Christ-like, it usually helps to be a Christian. It's right there in the name, after all. And it is especially wild for Telerico to argue that an atheist, someone who explicitly rejects the existence of God and the divinity of Christ, is somehow more Christ-like than people who actually believe in Christ. That's not theology. That's political gaslighting. Nothing matters to the left except gaslighting you into accepting their agenda. Truth doesn't matter. Consistency doesn't matter. Faith doesn't matter. And now he's justifying abortion with his biblical claims. Here's cut number 5.
But I say all this in context of abortion because before God comes over Mary and we have the incarnation, God asks for Mary's consent, which is remarkable. I mean, go back and read this in Luke. I mean, the angel comes down and asks Mary if this is something she wants to do. And she says, if it is God's will, let it be done. Let it be. Let it happen. So to me, that is an affirmation in one of our most central stories that creation has to be done with consent. You cannot force someone to create. Creation is one of the most sacred acts that we engage in as human beings, but that has to be done with consent. It has to be done with freedom. And to me, that is absolutely consistent with the ministry and life and death of Jesus. And so that's how I come down on that side of the issue.
James Telerico says that an angel came and offered Mary an abortion. That's his view. To support his idea that the Bible is pro-choice, this man is a phony, a liar, and a total joke. When we come back, new polling on immigration. Don't miss it. It's Scott Jennings here on Salem. Hey, it's Scott, and I'm so excited to welcome Crowd Health as a new partner to the Scott Jennings Show. For several years, I'm hearing more people voicing frustration with traditional health insurance. Bad incentives baked into Obamacare have sent costs soaring. The rules are a maze of jargon, and people feel stuck. That's why I want to tell you about my new partner, Crowd Health. Crowd Health isn't insurance. It's a community that cuts out the middleman to help one another fund medical expenses, giving you more freedom, fewer surprises, and greater control over your healthcare choices. And when it comes to cost, members are spending hundreds less per month compared to traditional insurance. Right now, you can get started for just $99 per month for your first 3 months when you use the code SCOTT.
Go to joincrowdhealth.com. That's joincrowdhealth.com and use code SCOTT. Again, joincrowdhealth.com, code SCOTT. Quick reminder, Crowd Health is not insurance. You can opt out, take your power back, and that is how we win.
Welcome back to the Scott Jennings Show. Tuesday, February 3rd, tracking all the breaking news today. Of course, a lot of it revolving around immigration. And I've been wondering, what do actual voters think about all of this back and forth on Minnesota? The idea of enforcing our national immigration laws. And fortunately, I know someone who can tell us the answer. My friend and nationally renowned Republican pollster, Brent Buchanan, is here from the Signal, that's CYGNAL, polling group, joins the show. Brent, you all over at Signal published some eye-popping polling data yesterday, and I was perusing this, and the only thing I can say is that Democrats are absolutely out over their skis when it comes to their political positioning on immigration. Brent, welcome back to the show. Let's talk about this poll.
Man, they live in a bubble. If you watch the news and you polled people who are delivering the news to us, quote news, you would have a drastically different view than what Americans actually believe. That's why we did this poll last week, because I knew there was a gap. I didn't realize there was a chasm between the two. And even just starting with the principle of what does illegal mean? You know, we had to have this discussion of what is a man and what is a woman. The Democrats still haven't figured that one out. They also don't know what the word illegal means. So 73% of voters say that if you came here without permission, you broke the law. That is the definition of illegal. But the reason it's so low is because 45% of Democrats disagree with that statement, and of those, the remainder who do agree, it's very soft. So like they're super tepid in their understanding of what the word illegal even means. So if we can't agree on that, how do we agree on deportation and ICE and any of these other issues?
Well, it's a good question, and I have sat on many a CNN panel over the last several months, and I have been chastised and condescended to about this. I've been told by news anchors that it's not actually illegal to enter our country illegally. I was told by some twerp the other night I'm not allowed to use the phrase illegal aliens anymore, even though that phrase does appear in U.S. law. But for the record, it is a crime to come into the country illegally. It's also a crime to come in, be deported, and come back in. It's also a crime to run away when you're trying to be apprehended by ICE. We've seen that happening. So according to your polling, though, despite all the propaganda about, oh, it's not really a crime, you're saying, Brent, the American people know full well that it is a crime.
Unless you're a Democrat, yes.
Right, of course, unless you're a Democrat. All right, so the first question, very clear. 3/4 of the American people say, yes, it is a crime to enter the country illegally. Let's talk about the severity of the problem. Another thing that we often hear is that, oh, well, you know, why are we going after these illegal aliens? Is this really an issue? And then they make up anecdotes or fantasy stories about bakers who've been in the country for 47 years and they're just baking their muffins and they're not bothering anyone. What do the American people have to say, according to your polling, about the severity of the problem of illegal immigration?
Well, let's start with Democrats, because they're in this parallel universe. And it reminds me of this great movie, Monty Python, where the knight is bleeding out, has no legs, and says, "'Tis a mere flesh wound." And that's essentially where Democrats are right now. 61% say it is not a serious problem, or not even a problem at all. 2/3 of Democrats. You go look at voters overall, and it's 2/3 say it is a somewhat or very serious problem. It's even stronger among swing voters. You go look at the demographics who matter and make decisions and who wins elections. They all strongly agree that this is a real problem. It's just on the other side of the ledger. The Democrats think it's 'tis mere a flesh wound.
I guess it stands to reason, though, that if you're a Democrat who doesn't believe that it is illegal to enter the country anyway, then you wouldn't think illegal immigration was a problem, because you don't actually believe that immigration is illegal. So I guess it stands to reason. But on this note, as an issue for electoral matters, you've got a political party that says, no, this isn't a problem. But you've got 2/3 of the American people that say, yes, illegal immigration is a severe national problem. All right, so if you've got 2/3 of the American people who say it's a problem, you've got 3/4 of the American people who acknowledge that people are breaking the law when they come into the country illegally. Let's talk about what your polling found. What should we do about it? People's opinions of actual deportation. What do people think about deporting those who are here illegally? Brent Buchanan of Signal.
A lot of times you see this question where it says, deport those criminals who are here illegally. And I think that, of course, is going to perform well, because who's going to say keep criminals here? Except I bet there are many Democrats who would say that. So we wrote the question a bit more basic and said, do you support or depose those illegally here in the U.S. back to their country of origin? 61% support. And then Democrats in their alternate reality, 67% in opposition. And I begin to wonder as I look at all of this, because rule of law is common sense. And, you know, these are the same people who were telling us to trust the science during COVID, yet they're completely ignoring the rule of law. And I really wonder how much of this is just the fact that Donald Trump thinks it's illegal if you cross the border, which is common sense. And Donald Trump thinks that people need to go back who came here illegally, and therefore they have to oppose it. It's like morally within their code that they cannot agree with Donald Trump on anything.
And let's set some facts about your polling sample here. You polled over 1,000 Americans, and these are all likely midterm voters, correct?
Correct. And we even set the frame, because when you're doing polling, you got to look at what is turnout going to be. And that is not just a number. It is how it is gender breakdown, how does age breakdown, education, you know, college education versus not college education, partisanship. There's a lot of factors that go into how we're looking at this. And our team has just decided that we're at least this far out from the election going to take a conservative approach to what we think the turnout's going to be, and that it's going to look a little bit more like 2018 than it did 2022. You know, I'm beginning to believe with issues like this that we're going to see a midterm that looks more like 22. So you can almost take this as a worst case scenario poll, that the numbers are likely better than this if Republicans are able to capitalize on this issue and really cast the Democrats as extreme, because that's what elections come down to. It's the reason that nobody had on their bingo card that we were going to close out the presidential election with transgendered sex changes for prisoners or men and women's sports. But here we are. That's how we closed out the election. And it's not because that was the most pressing issue. It's because that was a great way to show that the Democrats are extreme and radical and way outside the mainstream. And I view this immigration and deportation issue as the exact same opportunity.
That voice you're hearing on the Scott Jennings Show today, that of Brent Buchanan of Signal, Cygnal, a leading polling organization for Republicans. We're talking about some national polling that Brent and his company have just come out of the field with. So on the issue of deportation, over 60% of midterm voters say deport those who are illegally in the United States. And you didn't parse it out and say those who are here illegally and have committed other crimes. This is simply, if you're in the country illegally, 60% of midterm voters want those people deported. That's a clear majority of the American people.
Oh, it's huge. And I actually was digging in this morning and wrote an article about this, and you can check it out on my X profile, of why is this so radically different of how the media is framing this and how American voters sit. Because if you look at the media framing, it's over 90% negative on the issue of deportation. And I found a subgroup of voters who I'm pretty darn sure is in control of the media, and it is young, white, liberal women. They are 94% opposed to deportations. 94%, when the rest of the country is 61% in support of it. I mean, that's beyond a chasm. I don't know what the next adjective I can use to describe is, but it makes a lot of sense when you realize who is pushing this news to us and how radically different they are on this topic than literally everybody else.
Well, it's not just this topic. It's a lot of topics, but that'll be a conversation for another day. Brent, a couple of more questions you asked, and you talked about the relentless negative media coverage. If it's 90% negative on deportations, it's 100% negative when it comes specifically to ICE and ICE tactics. But in your survey, you found a majority of the American people support ICE, specifically saying ICE, enforcing immigration laws to remove illegal immigrants. It says here 54% of the American people support ICE removals. But what was the story among Democrats?
81% oppose. You dig into liberal women, and it's approaching 100% in opposition to what ICE is doing. And the same reason on this that we phrased the question, we didn't say, do you like ICE? Because my guess is that is actually upside down. But we said ICE, which is its mission to enforce federal immigration laws by what? By removing illegal immigrants from the U.S. We laid out exactly what ICE does and what it is currently doing, and it gets 54% support. Among swing voters, it jumps to almost 60% support. So again, it's just the Democrats, once again, strongly in opposition to an issue that 60% of the people who are going to decide this election, swing voters, actually agree with Donald Trump and the Republicans on.
All right, Brent, let's close out this conversation by talking about electoral impact. On the initial generic ballot, you found that Democrats had a small lead over Republicans on the generic ballot. But when you ask people, do these immigration issues, does opposing ICE enforcing immigration laws make you change your opinion? What happened? In other words, my question is this: can Republicans use the immigration issue and pivot off of what Democrats are saying to erase the Democratic advantage that they appear to have in the midterm? Yes or no?
Completely. Lean in harder, don't go backwards. When I see some of these members of Congress talking about how we should have been more targeted in how we're approaching this, and then I look at this data and think, you guys need to go. You're part of the problem. You know, the Republicans who are saying go further are the ones who are part of the solution here, because that's what voters are telling us. Almost 60% of folks oppose shutting down the government to defund ICE. They oppose defunding ICE, period. And then when you, to your point, you ask about it in an electoral context, it swings the race 6 points. That is almost double the margin of error of this poll shift. When we make this election about Democrats not supporting ICE, not being for deporting people, and then going so far as because they want to shut down the government over it, that is a 6 point swing. I don't know another issue that I could lay out for our clients, who are a lot of these people, you know, running for office and in office right now, that would give them a 6 point swing, double the margin of error of a survey.
That voice is Brent Buchanan. He is a leading Republican pollster. He is with Signal. Brent, we've got about 30 seconds. I'm just going to sum it up. Number one, the American people want deportations. Number two, the American people support ICE. Number three, Democrats are living on another planet when it comes to immigration. And number four, if you're a Republican candidate within the sound of our voices, lean in. Don't lean out. Don't go wobbly. Be for deportations. Be for strong borders. And be for the American people. That was Brent Buchanan. This is Scott Jennings. You're listening to Common Sense for the American People. More after this.
Slaying the leftist narratives one by one. This is the Scott Jennings Show.
Breaking news to all of you. This morning, as I was preparing the show, I was preparing to report to you all about the neighborhood blockades that are going on in Minneapolis. You've seen the video, I'm sure. These civilians are setting up blockades. You pull up, and they check your license plate. These people aren't police. They're not there in any official capacity, but they check your license plate. This is highly illegal. So I emailed, Jared, you know, you were there. I emailed the city of Minneapolis, and I had a simple question. Has anyone been arrested for setting up illegal blockades, for harassing citizens, for apparently having some sort of secret database by which they check whether your license plate belongs to an ICE vehicle? And after some back and forth with the city of Minneapolis just a moment ago, literally minutes ago, we got a response from the Minneapolis police. I will read it to you. No arrests have been made. Now, the city did tell me that the public works team did clean up the street, and they took away the barricades and all the crap that was in the street. But no arrests have been made. Why? Why? Why are civilians in Minneapolis, Minnesota, or anywhere else for that matter, allowed to go out into the street, build a barricade, physically stop other citizens, other people from driving their cars. Tell them to roll down their window. I've seen video of people saying, oh, we ran your license plate through a database, and it looks like your car is owned by ICE. We need you to get out of the car. We need to talk to you about this. Let me tell you something right now. If I rolled up on some rinky-dink makeshift barricade and somebody had me roll down my window and said, hey, I need to talk to you about your license plate, well, let me just tell you, I wouldn't be putting it in park. Okay? This is not normal behavior. Why? But again, there's a lot of mental illness out there. I don't understand why the police don't arrest people. Now, we already know that in Minneapolis, according to Todd Lyons, who told us on this show, the mayor told the police department, do not assist ICE if they are under attack from illegal aliens. So if ICE is out doing its job and they come under attack, we know that the police were instructed not to help. Now, it seems to me, because no arrests have been made in these blockades, that somebody told the police, don't arrest these guys. And you know what happens when people get away with crap like this? They will do it again. Other people will be inspired to do it. That's what you get. That's what you get when you don't arrest people. But that's the breaking news from the Scott Jennings Show to close out today. I have received official confirmation from the city of Minneapolis, the public information officer of the police department. It's right here in front of me on this screen. No arrests have been made, even though we have people in the street building barricades and stopping their fellow citizens. It is more than just a traffic hazard. It is unsafe. It is harassment. This is clearly illegal behavior. But in Minneapolis, where they exist in a state of secession from the federal government, apparently they also exist in a state of secession from their own laws and from good public order. If I lived in Minneapolis, I would demand arrests. I want people arrested for doing crap like this. Before we close out the show today, a pitch for you to come on a cruise with me in November. I'm ready for it right now. We got to wait till November. It's the Gulf of America cruise. Scott Jennings and Mike Gallagher will be cruising through the Caribbean, the Gulf of America. Sign up to go with us. Text the word cruise to 94878. That's cruise to 94878. Or go to Scott Jennings Show and click on the Gulf of America cruise banner. We have a limited number of cabins, but I want to see you in one of them. Crystal blue waters, incredible ports, first-class hospitality, and a lot of great conversation with Mike Gallagher and yours truly, Scott Jennings. It is the Gulf of America cruise in November. I want to see you there. Thank you, Boston. You've been great. Tomorrow, we're back in New York City. It's common sense for the American people. Scott Jennings signing off, but we'll see you tomorrow.